I am an 18-year-old female and I live in a small town in London with my mom and 2 cats. This story happened last night, and I'm still trying to wrap my head around it. To start with, you'll need to know the basic layout of my house. So there are 3 entrances, 1 front door and 2 back doors. 1 sliding glass door and the other had a regular glass door. We use the regular back door the most, as it leads to a parking lot outside of my garden. The door is in my kitchen next to a window, where I am able to look out into the garden. My mom works night shifts, so I was home alone at this time, as it was around 8:30 p.m. I was washing the dishes and listening to some music, and I kept hearing occasional thumping. I kept shrugging it off, thinking it was probably my cat jumping off of something. But then I heard a loud bang on the window, to which I stopped what I was doing and looked out the front door, which is usually where my cat waits when he wants to come in, or a stray cat that always thumps on my door to get my cat's attention. When I looked, nothing. I opened the door. Nothing. So I went back to the kitchen and turned off my music, only to hear my cat growling at the back door, which is always a bad sign. I then turned off the kitchen light to see outside of the window, as it was quite dark by now, and as I looked, I froze. I was frozen with fear as I saw 3 guys, roughly my age, pelting in and out of my garden. I saw that they were taking the decorative stones and bricks from my garden and giggling like 5-year-olds. They kept on coming in, taking bricks, leaving and closing the gate for about 15 seconds before coming back in and repeating. Then my other cat who was outdoors hops down from the fence into my garden. As he was walking towards my door, I grabbed my keys to open it, until I saw one of the men swing open the gate, run in and kick my cat across the garden and run back out, closing the gate. At this point, I was freaking the heck out. I can't describe the shock and horror I felt. I was on the verge of tears as I opened the door to tend to my cat. Luckily, he just bolted into the house, but I knew I needed to lock the gate before shit hit the fan. Realizing they were just literally on the other side of the gate, about to burst through at any moment, I bolted to the gate, and just as I reached it, one of the guys started opening it. I pushed it closed as hard as I could, throwing all of my weight onto it as the guy started calling out for his friends to notify them. I tried as hard as my shaking hands would let me to get the key in the lock and lock it. As soon as I heard it lock, I sprinted back to my door, and as I got in and locked the door, I peeked out of the kitchen window, only to see the men attempting to climb over my shed. To my relief, they couldn't get over it. However, seconds later, I saw bricks flying over the gate. I instantly called the police, my voice shaking and stuttering as they told me they'd be there in 5 to 8 minutes. I then heard an extremely loud bang, followed by shattering as a brick hit my sliding glass door and shattered one of the 2 layers of glass. I swear I have never been this scared in my life. I crouched down and peeked through the kitchen window again to see beer bottles being thrown over the gate. One of them was literally on fire. Luckily, it landed on gravel, but it was still completely messed up. I have never seen these guys in my life. I don't know anybody in my neighborhood. My house is literally connected to about 20 other houses side by side, and for some reason my house was targeted? I still don't understand why they were doing this or what we had done to anybody for this to happen. Eventually, I saw the blue lights of the police vehicle, which lifted so much weight off my chest. I didn't hear anything for a while, and around 20 minutes later they knocked on my front door, apologizing for their sweatiness as they had just chased the guys about half a mile down the road. They took my statement and checked all of the damage and the objects which had been thrown, and said I'd have to wait for an agency to temporarily board up the door, etc. I couldn't sleep that night, so I stayed up and took my cat to the vets in the morning to see if he was okay. Thank God he was fine. No broken bones or bleeding or anything. For the past week, I've been so scared every time I'm left alone at night. I don't let my cats outside after dark, and always leave a light on. This incident has made me aware that this neighborhood isn't all doves and bunnies like everybody makes it seem, and has thankfully encouraged my mom to start locking the back gate when she leaves for work. I hope nobody else experiences being terrorized like this. I'm always on edge when home alone, and nobody should feel like this. Your home is supposed to be your place where you feel most comfortable and safe. Screw those guys for everything, and I hope the police manage to find them before they do this to anybody else, including animals. I am now a grown adult, but this occurred when I was 15 years old. I had been out at the mall earlier that evening clothes shopping with my mom, younger sister, and brother. We were heading back home after hours of torturous shopping, and it was a relatively long drive since we lived out in the countryside. The interstate we were traveling on was one that rarely had a high traffic volume. It was newly finished and people still preferred taking the other longer route that they were more familiar with. And especially at such a late hour, it was totally deserted. My mom was in the front seat driving since I didn't have my permit yet, and it was so dark outside, being around 10:30 p.m. by then. My 13-year-old sister had called shotgun, and then my 9-year-old brother was in the backseat of the van beside me. We were making small talk. Hard to remember exactly the subject matter since it was many years ago. The blackness outside didn't seem unnerving at the moment, and my mom had the high beams on, illuminating a wide portion of the road in front of us, and even lighting up the shoulder beside the right lane. It happened very quickly, although when recalling it in my memory it seemed to drag out for longer. We were driving, and came upon a small shape on the right shoulder of the road. It started out as a small dark figure, then got closer and bigger, until we passed what looked like a woman with her hands on her knees with her back straight. She was thin, wearing what seemed like maybe shorts and a t-shirt, dark hair pulled back in a ponytail. Her body remained eerily still, not moving at all, and her head was down between her shoulders so that you couldn't make out her face. She never lifted her head, even with our van rushing by going at least 70 miles per hour. During our approach, my mother had been saying something like, "Do you see that? What is that? Is that a person?" Even though we had no idea what we had seen for sure, or what the circumstances around it were, I remember an unmistakable feeling of dread. Something in my mind and body was telling me that what we had saw wasn't good. My sister and brother were both making unintelligible shouts and comments, and my mom was panicked. She realized it had been a person, and her first impression was that they were hurt and needed help. I immediately shouted at her not to turn around. I pleaded, "Mom, no. What are you doing? Don't turn around. Are you crazy? We don't even have Dad here to protect us. Mom, stop." I kept on screaming as she came to the nearest turnaround and eased the van onto it quickly, taking us back in the other direction of the interstate. Dark thoughts raced through my mind at this point, all in a few seconds. What if this was a ploy to carjack someone? What if they were hurt by someone, and when we stopped to help they come out from hiding and attack us? What if it wasn't a person we'd seen? Something else. Something evil. Obviously, this last thought seems ridiculous now, but at the time my imagination and superstition was running wild. Making the rest of this short, we got back to the spot very quickly and drove around for a while with us kids panicking and my mom determined to find the person. We never saw them again. We knew we'd seen them on the side of the road that night. Mom did end up calling the police, who combed the area a short time later that night and turned up nothing. But I remember how I felt when we stopped off at my grandparents' house and told them what we had seen. We were all shaken and nervous, even my mother. To this day, we still don't know what happened to whoever or whatever it was. I'm not sure I even want to know. This story happened when I was 7 years old. My mom had just gotten married to my little brother's dad, aka my then stepdad. My brother would have been a newborn at the time. We had been in this house a year previous to this story, and nothing weird had happened until then. It was a Friday, and I was spending it watching TV and playing the Wii. It was starting to get late, so I decided it was time to turn in. I hopped in my pajamas and fell asleep almost immediately. I woke up out of nowhere at maybe 1 in the morning. I sat in my room rubbing my eyes when I heard banging coming from the kitchen, sort of like plates being shuffled around. I thought to myself, who could be making food at 1 in the morning? I eventually shrugged it off and fell back to sleep. The next day, me and my sister, who was 5 at the time, were playing in her room. We were playing with toys until we saw her door open. My brother's dad was outside on the phone, and my mom was at work, so the door opening was weird. Since we were young and innocent, we closed it and started playing again. After a couple of minutes, the door opened again. We once again closed the door, this time with a slam. The door opened again. Now we were starting to get freaked out. We closed the door now, standing up against it to keep it from opening. We felt something pushing against the door, but whatever or whoever it was stronger than us. Eventually, whatever it was gave up. We weren't exactly terrified. We were more just creeped out. After about 10 minutes of standing against the door, we got tired of standing and quickly moved the toy box in front of the door. We sat on the toy box just for some extra weight. This may seem like a little overreaction, but at 7, what do you expect? My mind went on a quick race for a second. We had slammed the door, and the only way it could have opened is if someone turned the knob. And even then, my sister's door gets stuck a little when you slam it, so it would have taken a good amount of force to open it. My sister checked out the window to see if my brother's dad was still outside, and sure enough, he was. We sat on the toy box until eventually he came inside and I went to my room. I told him what happened, and he told me and my sister it was the wind. I didn't believe him. I sat in my room thinking about it. Was someone in our house? Was something in our house? Is it trying to hurt us? My mind was racing. I had a short attention span, so when the TV came on, I kind of forgot about it. Eventually, I got used to the noises at night and my sister's door opening. Until one night I woke up at about 1 in the morning. I didn't hear noises, but I didn't really care because I had to use the bathroom. I didn't really want to go, but I was going to explode if I didn't. I walked down my dark hallway into the bathroom. I heard heavy breathing and I saw a figure walk by the bathroom. I thought it was my brother's dad and didn't really think about it much. I walked out of the bathroom and my heart dropped. My mom and my stepdad's door was closed. They always keep it open when they leave the room at night because they didn't want to open and close it too much to wake up my brother. I was terrified. The figure was too big to be my sister. I was full-blown pissing myself when the noises snapped me out of it. I had to see what was happening. I quietly walked over to the kitchen. The noises stopped. I froze and closed my eyes. I heard footsteps walk until they sounded like they were right next to me. Something put its hand in my hair, then in a violent whisper I heard, "Go to sleep." I lost my confidence at that point and bolted back to my room, closed my door and hid under my covers. Thinking about the situation was so scary that I blacked out. I woke up the next morning and heard my mom talking about plates and forks being in places they shouldn't have been, like in the closet and refrigerator. I didn't tell her about the figure, the noises, or the whisper, honestly in fear of sounding insane. Now that I'm older, it seems silly. My mom remarried somewhere else and we live somewhere else. Last week we were talking about that house, and we were laughing about it. Until my mom asked me why I was so scared that I was using the bathroom in her room and playing with her clothes. This was weird because I only went to the hallway bathroom in fear of waking up my brother. When I told my mom this, the smile was wiped clean off her face. I don't know if it was a person or a spirit, and I don't know if it meant us any harm, but I hope whoever lives in that house after us is safe. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit the notifications button and tell YouTube you want to be notified for everything I do. Make sure you also hit that subscribe button. And I would also really appreciate if you shared this so we can help the channel grow some more, you know what I'm saying? And if you would like to help support the channel, I highly recommend you check out the sponsor button down by the subscribe button, or even head over to my Patreon page. You can find a link in the description to that. I really appreciate everyone checking out this video, and I will catch you in the next one. And just remember, it's always scarier if it's true.